Good afternoon, everyone. Don't worry, it's nearly time for drinks. I won't take too long. Um, First of all, I wonder if it's possible just to have the lights up a little bit because I've got a bit of audience participation to do. And don't worry, I'm not going to crowd surf or anything like Glastonbury. So if I could just have the lights, that's it, perfect. So I was just going to ask if anybody could raise their hands if they've attended Glastonbury Festival. Oh, okay, so that's quite a few. Can I ask you to keep your hand raised if you follow our social media platforms, dedicated Glastonbury ones? Oh, Ellie, my colleague, great. Fantastic. Okay, so as has been said, good afternoon, everyone. I am Natalie Box. I'm an Assistant Digital Comms Officer with Avon and Somerset Police. Groom, my previous job title was a lot easier to say. I'm delighted to be here today to talk to you about Glastonbury Festival, a world-famous event that my organisation has had the pleasure to police since the first Pilton Pop Festival, as it was then called, back in 1970. It certainly looked a little bit different back then, and it was probably a lot easier to get a ticket, and it probably didn't take 3 hours to get out of the car park on the Sunday. But yeah, and that's the pyramid stage in the background, which I think you'll agree has evolved a bit in that time. So it wasn't until 2009 that we launched our first dedicated Glastonbury page on Twitter, with Instagram added in 2014. The brief this year was to treat the festival ground as an additional neighbourhood policing area, policing the digital beat in much the same way that we do our neighbourhood social media pages. Areas to concentrate on were visibility and community engagement, reassurance that we're dealing with low-level crime and concerns, security-minded messages, important updates and appeals, and in exceptional circumstances, and travel and road safety advice. The neighbourhood approach this year was slightly different to previous years, where some felt, chief officers, that some content was posted without a clear policing purpose, and that's what they wanted to avoid. So this phrase was coined by our Assistant Chief Constable, who was running the policing operation at Glastonbury this year. I can't wait to find out what he comes up with when we start calling it X. So he saw our pages very much as an additional operational tool only, and felt like fun and frivolous content had no place on our platforms. So as comms professionals, we had a really hard job to convince him that without eye-catching and interesting content, there is no audience to engage with, and that by attracting more followers through light-hearted posts, we'd have a larger and more engaged audience to see our key messages and, in rare cases, urgent messages and appeals. We had an extremely fine line to negotiate. As you can imagine, this caused a fair bit of apprehension among officers taking part. It's hard to recruit officers to take part in social media normally, so this added extra pressure. They were unwilling to put themselves out there and potentially land themselves in trouble. So I hosted meetings with volunteers explaining that ultimately, at the end of the day, if they'd be happy to post it on the neighbourhood page, then it would fit the bill. It's also, you can get away with a lot under the term engagement. So our objectives for this year's festival was to increase trust and confidence in Avon and Somerset Police, something at the heart of everything that we do. Ensure festival goers feel safe and their loved ones feel reassured that all know where to access help if needed. Hopefully to prevent crime and keep festival goers security-minded. To build an engaged following in the rare case that we need to issue an urgent appeal or update. And, importantly as well, to enhance our own staff's pride in the organisation. This is probably a bit of an obvious one to start with. Our target audience were festival goers, people, friends and family at the festival, local and national media, so something we had to bear in mind that anything that we put out there could be picked up by national media and has been in the past. And our own staff, so those working at the festival in a public-facing role, as well as at the festival behind the scenes, and also, really importantly, the other staff that were back at home stations keeping things running as usual. So, once the tents were pitched and the traffic jams negotiated, content on the ground was brought to you this year by yours truly and one member of the press team who also dealt with media inquiries. We then recruited 6 officers, most of whom were already active social media Spots. So for those of you not accustomed to the police's need to abbreviate absolutely everything, a Spock is a single point of contact. So slightly differently this year, we set the permissions differently through Orlo, so that basically when they posted, we were required to validate their post before they went live. As mentioned earlier, officers were nervous of signing up through fear of posting something contentious and landing themselves in hot water. So this way, it protected them and it protected the organisation and gave them more confidence to collect some really great content, safe in the knowledge that if they were in any way concerned, it wouldn't go out, or if it did, it would be my fault. Luckily, they welcomed the decision and the peace of mind that it gave them. So on some occasions, Spots would schedule posts through Orlo in the content calendar. Sometimes they sent photos directly to us, and we would post something, especially when inspiration was running low amongst them. And other times, we'd know what sort of messaging we wanted to put out, for example, hot weather advice, and then we would challenge them to find the best picture to use with the post. So, onto the pages themselves. Over on Twitter, alongside the engaging content, we share a lot of messaging from partners. For example, on main travel days, we share regular traffic updates alongside any weather warnings and advice around staying safe. Our corporate Twitter page is used mostly for breaking news, and this is similar on the Glastonbury page. So you've got to remember that festival goers are in their little Glastonbury bubble, so they're not watching the news and they're not reading newspapers. So they're relying a lot of the time on their Twitter feed to keep them up to date on important things that are happening. Over the years, we've built up a really strong relationship with partners, which is a really good thing to do. It's great to see when they share our posts. Sometimes they tag us in posts. It really helps. And one particular stakeholder that we have worked really hard to build a relationship up with is Glastonbury's own press team. So it was this relationship that enabled us to arrange the naming of one of our new police horses, Pilton, by Michael Eavis himself. And I'm sure that many of my police comms colleagues realise that if the post contains a horse or a dog, you're kind of onto a winner. And this was a definite engagement win, and it was picked up by local news and radio. It also, more importantly, sent a really strong message that both police and the festival organisers were working together closely to make people feel safe. And the other platform we use is Instagram, which is all about the looks. We particularly like the story function on Instagram, which we add to during the course of the festival, and then we create a highlights reel to mark each year's event, as you can see in the slide. Similar to our corporate page, on this platform, we aim for a tone that is both playful and inspiring, using high-quality photos that tell a story and embody our values. Instagram also gives us the opportunity to directly collaborate with partners via a collab post. It's something we hadn't used before this year's Glastonbury. And if you haven't used the function before, this means that the post will appear on the feeds of both organisations once the secondary organisation accepts. So we work really closely with counter-terrorism police before and during the event to promote their Be Safe, Be Sound campaign. Amazingly, CTP had managed to arrange for their infographic to appear on the pyramid stage monitors between acts on the Saturday afternoon, and it was then up to us to obtain the footage and form a collab post. Collaboration with a willing stakeholder instantly exposes your post to both audiences, and under the right circumstances, it's a win-win. For the amount of people attending Glastonbury, so I think somebody once said that it was similar to the population of Bath inside that festival ground for the week of the festival, crime rates are relatively low, but things like a terrorist threat are always at the back of people's minds. So seeing that we work closely with large specialist agencies can provide a lot of reassurance for people. Engaging with festival goers face-to-face is never a problem at Glastonbury, as you can see. The vibe is really unique, and when out on the ground, officers are often surrounded by people wanting to chat and take pictures with them. I think they'll all agree that it's different to a lot of what they face when they're out on their normal beats. Our aim, basically, is to try and create this buzz on our online channels. And I hasten to add that the attention that the officers receive has absolutely nothing to do with the free phone pouches that we hand out, which have become something of a collector's item.
This isn't any phone pouch. This is an A&S phone pouch.
Followers were actually posting on our page prior to this, asking and begging basically what the design of this year's pouch was going to be. We bumped into people that have like 3 or 4 pouches where they've collected one every year. So we decided to throw together this little promo video as a bit of fun to launch on the first day of the festival. Hats off to Keith from our multimedia team. So it's his charismatic voice that you hear. And I think he's currently being headhunted by a large supermarket chain. Hopefully we'll hold on to him. So, let the countdown begin. This year, we chose to do a countdown to the festival starting from 5 days out, and each countdown post contained handy information for people preparing to attend. By tagging relevant partners, some of which shared our posts, we grew our followers before the event even started. Tips included what to pack, which linked to Glastonbury website's own packing list, real-time updates, and making sure that your car was ready for the trip. So engagement on these posts were really good and looked to harness the built-in excitement for those attending. Now, bearing in mind that both accounts are dormant for much of the year, we thought that this was a really good way to start appearing in people's news feeds in preparation for the festival. And, you know, for those attending for the first time, to let them know we were there. So quite rightly, at the heart of everything that we do is our safety messaging. And these messages are what we build, or how we build trust in our organisation to help festival goers to feel safe and enjoy their experience. Examples above include advice around where you can store your valuables for free if you're heading out, a reminder not to leave bags unattended, and bearing in mind the tropical weather we had to contend with, where people could access free drinking water. We also put out plenty of posts to inform followers that we were on site day and night, 24 hours a day, and if they should need us and where to find us, and obviously to always call 999 in an emergency. When it comes to reach and engagement, it's probably no surprise that tracking down a celebrity or an influencer will always help, and be sure to tag them too. I was really disappointed that we didn't manage to find Dave Grohl because he was everywhere, but next year. Oh, no, go back, sorry. Here is an example of where we used a photo opportunity with the lovely Jo Wicks to relay some key messaging, encouraging people to approach our officers about crime prevention advice, and then also shamelessly again plugging our phone pouch in the second picture. On to puns. Love them or hate them, they're a great way to draw people's attention to a post. So utilising the name of a headliner or one of their popular songs also gives you the opportunity to tag them in your post. Hashtags work particularly well, especially if you consider that any band that's headlining at Glastonbury, you can bet is also trending on Twitter, so that helps to expose your post to a bigger audience. Followers liked to join in on these posts, and they often included their own puns in the comments also. I think I liked hashtag crime fighters the best there for Foo Fighters. So, take me down to the pyramid city where the grass is green and the cops are witty. This was by far my favourite post. It's so bad, it's good, okay? I was racking my brain to think of a Guns N' Roses angle, and this one actually came to me on the way down in the car on the Saturday. You can see from just a small selection of the comments and retweets, people really got behind it, and I also had quite a bit of fun responding to some of them as well. And I had been waiting a long time to post it, so... So it's our bread and butter to come up with brand new ways and brand new content to get people excited. I can't take the credit for this one, however. This was one of our night shift officers whose fitness app basically logged his route for the entirety of his shift. So that was a really new one for us. And then I also got an officer to log their steps on every patrol during their week at the festival so that we could come up with a Glastonbury step count. So again, festival goers engaged directly with this, giving us their step totals as well, which was a bit of fun. And sometimes you do just have to be in the right place at the right time with your phone ready. This was a really good short video that got loads of engagement. People really loved it. In reality, after a mile, it wore a bit thin, but you know, they don't know that, so that was a good one. So, okay, comms professionals love a stat, and we are no different at Avon and Somerset. So here are ours. So we got 127 new followers on Instagram. We put out 25 posts, 8 reels, 13 stories, plus the 2023 highlight story added to the page. So we ended up with 1,303 followers on Instagram. And on Twitter, we got 570 new followers. We put out 81 tweets, 48 retweets, and we ended up with followers of 13.7k. And we received 9.743k likes over both platforms. And I know some of you are probably thinking, that's not particularly high, or the stats aren't particularly great. But when you put into perspective that the account is only open for just over a week of the year, then hopefully that helps to add a bit of perspective. And it's wonderful feedback like this that tells us that we might just have got it right. So in police comms, as some of you will know, we don't often get a lot of praise from our followers. In fact, quite the opposite normally. So these comments were really heartwarming and made the long hours, and as I mentioned earlier, even the 3-hour queue to leave extremely worth it. As with any campaign, however successful, there are always learnings to take away. So next year, instead of recruiting and training up officers on Orlo for social media, we're simply going to ask for each shift to send photos directly to us, with a minimum of 1 per team. This could be included in the daily briefings, and we thought about the added incentive of a prize for the best picture or video. We also thought that potentially less focus on the pyramid stage would be a good thing, to better show how we cover the whole site. More photos from the outer areas would also help to dispel the myths that officers just hang out at the main stages, listening to their favourite music, because they really don't. We'd look at a roundup, Glastonbury roundup, either every day or every other day, on our corporate pages, directing people to the Glastonbury pages to grow the audience and the page traffic. And more scheduled content in advance, which would relieve the pressure day to day and free us up to capture more spontaneous content. So now the dust has settled and the sun has well and truly set on Glastonbury 23, it's probably about time we start looking at Glastonbury 24. I've really enjoyed giving you a small glimpse into the work behind our Glastonbury pages, and I now welcome and will try to answer any questions that you may have. I will finish the presentation by saying, if you ever find yourself lucky enough to snap up a ticket, then be sure to give us a follow. Thank you for listening.
We are going to take questions, but we've just got something else to do first. Sorry, I need a drink. I was just choking. So it's always really amazing when one of our speakers, our customers, takes time to become a speaker here, and they give us their time, their effort, their energy, and share their knowledge with us. It's even more amazing when they do it on their 20th anniversary of being in Avon Somerset Police. And I think it's today?
Today.
Today.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Thank you for
Thank
these
you
of
very
you.
much. Thank you. I didn't get you anything.
It's not my work anniversary. I'll probably get fired after this anyway, so don't worry. I was absolutely astonished when I found this out yesterday, and so we would talk about as a team about what we would do, and I think it just shows actually the strength of community sharing and things like that exists with somebody like Natalie, that they're willing to spend their 20-year work anniversary sharing with you their experience and expertise, right? So a really kind, wonderful thing to do, so thank you once again. Have we got any questions about Natalie's 20-year career at Avon and Somerset Police?
I know I don't look old enough.
Well, we did say that actually about the photo and thing as well. There's no way she could have done 20 years.
So when it comes, am I on? Yep. Yes? No? So when it comes to managing that influx of content, was it a case of, for the officers especially, was it a case of doing like a morning briefing and then sort of going away and regrouping, or was it like, did you have contact all throughout the day? Because basically we're trying to do the same with our devolved Twitter accounts and trying to find a way of communicating with them and getting images and all the rest of it, but doing it in like the safest and most appropriate way possible.
Yeah, and I think that was probably reflected in our learnings that, you know, there were lots of issues with phone signals, things like that, which sometimes meant that I had to keep running backwards and forwards to the police compound to get signal to post, or to check Orlo to see if they'd scheduled anything. You know, I think it's fair to say that the majority of the content came from ourselves, possibly not the officers. So that's why we were thinking, you know, like, we found that incentives like chocolate work really well. But actually we could put it in the briefing, you know, discuss with chief officers in advance and actually make it so that, look, we're only asking for 1 photo per team, which sounds reasonable. And then once we've got those photos in, we can decide how best to put them out in, or how the content's going to look.
Okay, any more questions? Right at the back. This is going to test Hannah's famed netball throwing skills.
I'm not risking it. I've had a glass of Prosecco. Ready?
Wow.
Oh, good
Good catch.
Testing. I was just curious, after Glastonbury finishes and then you've got a year to the next next festival, do you lose a lot of followers, or do those people that were there stay and then it's just growing year on year?
It tends to grow year on year. And I think, you know, like some people that comment, literally the first post we put out, which was 5 days to go, people commented that have obviously been following us for some time, and they're like, oh, we love you, Police at Glasgow, what are you giving away free this year, that sort of thing. So I think they're just happy to, like, once they've joined up, especially if they're regular Glastonbury goers, it's like they just stay joined up and then we attract new people. So if you look at, you know, Twitter was introduced in 2009, and it was a bit later for Instagram, which, you know, shows in probably the follower numbers, because we're at, I think, 13.7k off the top of my head on Twitter. So yeah, it just does continue to build year on year, which is great.
Cool, thank you.
Oh, good throw and catch. It's great. We could just do this all night, couldn't we? Any more questions for Natalie before she runs to the bar and celebrates 20 years in Avon, Somerset Place?
Do you feel you struck the balance on the no glitter on Twitter, or do you think that, like, the hot dog picture and all that kind of thing, was that just nudging the balance, do you think, or do you think you got the human engagement right?
I had a lot of discussions with the ACC, Assistant Chief Constable. We drew up a strategy. It's like I said before, a lot can come under the engagement umbrella. So when I talk about posts that the ACC was referring to by saying no glitter on Twitter, it would perhaps be like pictures where we've had like officers' selfies where they've got glitter face paint, or officers posing with an ice cream, no members of the public in the pictures. Whereas like with the hot dog picture, like swapping the hats and posing for a picture, it's engaging with the public. So we were happy, that would tick the box. Definitely. Because they do, you know, our neighbourhood policing teams do similar on their neighbourhood pages when they attend fetes and local community events. So that's the way we kind of gauged it.
But nobody lost their job?
Not yet. I might not be doing it again. I don't know.
Okay, any more questions before we start to wrap things up? I think that's it. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you very much.